Hi guys, this is Kenny with BioArt Face and Body. Today we put together a video on the leaf and flower stencil. We're going to add some color, we're going to do some black and white, hopefully show you a few of the tricks that we've used and see if this all comes together well for you guys. So let's begin. Alright, so what we're going to do here is just apply a real thin layer of blue, or whatever color you're going to use, just enough so you can just see the outline. At that point I'm just going to go ahead and just fill in a little bit of a rough outline with my color, and we'll fill the whole flower with blue here, or whatever color you're using. Just remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just get some color on there. Don't go too heavy or it's going to take a long time to dry. Get a little blue on there, add a little air, let it tack up a little bit. In the meantime, I'm going to get some white. Real important to get that white highlight in your color here. Again, not real heavy, just real light. Kind of a little bit of a bullseye effect. More white in the center, gradually fading out towards the edges. Don't take your white to the edge though. In the meantime, I'm here swapping my paints out. I got a little lazy. I should have had more guns set up, but this paint, you need to let it dry up just a little bit. You don't want to get too fast, too quick, or you're going to start peeling off your paint when you're transitioning through your stencils. But this paint, it does real well. We use the Pro Air, haven't had any issues whatsoever. Don't really plan on changing. You'll see there I do have a little bit of blue that extends past the edge of the flower, but that's alright. You're going to have the black that's going to hide that. If you do see a little blue sticking out, don't fret over it. Just keep on moving. It's going to look good, I promise. When I'm painting, you'll see here as I'm adding the black, I usually set the target of the airbrush or the nozzle kind of 50% on the stencil and 50% on the skin. That way I get a good half and half. I don't go too heavy on the stencil and I don't go too heavy on the skin. So that usually keeps it pretty uniform. This right here, I'll stick that number 1 spot. You see that little horn there towards the right? That's your landmark. I went ahead and added a few little neon little stickers, look like little freckles on there, just to show you some of the key portions of those stencil slots that I line up first. Right by that number 2 you'll see a little green freckle there. That's one of the ones I use often. Kind of helps me line up the rest of the stencil. Highlighting in here, I don't go too dark. I just kind of feather it in. Not going to go as dark as you did when you did your main outline. You go too dark, you're going to hide your color. Add a little air, tack it up. Get ready to move on to the next one. Number 3, I added a marker there. I kept painting over it, so again, you'll see my little indicators. Those are my IQs for me. They may work for you, they may not. You just have to play with it and practice. Again, the same thing. Not going to the outside edge of the petals, but just working from the center. Working your way out just a little bit. Light feather paint, doesn't take much. Peel it off, add a little air, and get ready to move on to the next one. If you do get a little confused, realign with number 1. Don't move the stencil, just slide it directly over in one linear motion. And again, you'll see right there, you'll see those little orange indicator arrows. Again, those are just what I've used over time. The more you practice with this, the more used and comfortable you'll have that muscle memory in place, and you won't really need those indicators anymore. You'll just have it second nature. But for the longest time, I had to have this. This was definitely a tricky stencil. One of my most favorite, but yet one of the most intimidating as well. On to the last, the number 5 slot. You can see we're directly pretty much right on the white. Again, doesn't take much black, just feather it in there. Cool. Now I just add a little bit of shadow towards that center, and we're done with that. Again, just to re-emphasize, whatever color you select, you definitely want to get some white in there. I do the bullseye effect. I don't drag that white all the way to the edges. If you elect not to use white, you will run the risk of taking away the color of the flower with the black. To me, it just seems like it needs that white to help it shoot out at your eye. Just going to add these leaves. I love these leaves. Again, a really great stencil design, very user-friendly. Take a little time if you want, if you have the time. I just get one of those styling tools. Just add it in here, helps kind of break that pattern up. Again, if you got the time. If you're 20 people deep in line, you may not have the time. Just add them down. For my painting, I really try to encapsulate the entire stencil that's being used. Try not to leave any open edges as much as possible. I do see some stencils out there, they get left without an edge, or I'll miss an edge myself. It just seems like it's incomplete, doesn't give that genuine tattoo look. But if you see it, try to do your best to enclose the entire stencil, at least the stencil portion that you're using on the skin. Using the stick right here, I love this stick. This thing is another really excellent stencil that we use quite a bit. It's tricky, it's very delicate, very fragile. The slightest breeze will knock this thing off your target. I don't get in a real big hurry. I really make sure that I'm planted securely in my chair and have a good anchor point, but I'll definitely slide that paint even off those edges just to give it more of a shadow complete look. Here in Arizona, we have all kinds of different temperatures, winds, monsoons, dry heat, the whole 9 yards. And then when we're painting, it's kind of difficult to adjust and acclimate to those certain things. But especially when you're using these little bitty stencils just like this, I'm using that little bitty stick on this flower. I got big hands. It's okay to manipulate your stencils around to give them that finished look. And you can see even on the top right of that flower, I didn't close off that petal, so it happens. Just move that flower around, use an edge. It doesn't have to be perfect, just close it off. There you go. I see flaws in this. I'll always see flaws in things, but don't let those flaws hold you back. Just keep working through it, power through it. Shadow, add some stuff, it'll hide. And the average person, they're not going to pick it out. So your clients will be very happy with it regardless. Don't get too hypercritical. This stencil here, like I said, it is very tricky. It doesn't like to lay flat on skin. So when I'm painting it, especially in very windy conditions, I just more or less hold it down with air and pass with paint. You can see that it just kind of bounces up and down off the skin. It just kind of happens. So just adding another little branch segment. There we go. This right here, this is the fastest I can put color on without it making it look ridiculous. Now, here's the black and white. Same thing, twice as fast as with color. Not going to use color, just going to go strictly just the black. What we have been practicing and experimenting here in Arizona is a lot of people are coming in sweaty because of the temperature, or again the humidity factor. So after I alcohol the site, I will actually start putting powder the on the skin. So normally we apply the powder after we paint, but again, I just needed some way to tack this skin up where it's not sticking to the paint or feeling like I'm handling a corpse. I'll put that powder on there, keeps the skin a little bit more manageable, a little bit more drier, and my paint's not peeling off when I'm removing the stencil. So again, same concept. Line it up with number 1, go into number 2, straight linear motion. Again, I got my little green dot. That's my primary indicator for this one right here. Go real light on the edges. Don't take it to the outside edges. A lot goes a long way. Moving on to number 3. Line it up. Straight linear motion over. A little bit goes a long way. Practice with this stencil. This was very complex. When we got this stencil pack, I did not want to use it. I did not want anybody to see this stencil, because anything that I don't want to paint, people seem to want to paint or have painted on them. So I would hide this stencil pack from the general public. I ended up really just having to break down and practice with it. My primary method of practicing for this stencil was to get some paper, some cardboard, you name it, anything that you can paint on that's disposable, just to get used to this complex stencil pattern. It was very complex for me, it may be complex for others, but this is the most beautiful flower stencil that I've seen to date. So this one, now that I got the hang over it without the alcohol, excuse me, now that I have the hang of it, it is one of my most popular, my most favorite stencils. Add your flowers, add your leaves, add anything you want. I tend to make several passes, maybe 3 to 4 passes of a lighter coat than one heavy coat. I may have already said that, but it seems like the ink will last longer on the skin, dries a little faster, and to me it seems like it gives it a little bit more of a dimension too, so you get that more deep, a 3-dimensional effect as well. So again, to each their own. This is something that I like to practice here. These leaves are pretty user friendly. You can use a styling tool to separate them or just shadow directly on top. Again with the flowers. We've been using the Pro Air paint since we started. Haven't really used much of anything else, but honestly I haven't really had the desire, the motivation to really check with anybody else either. This paint hasn't let me down. It's very consistent. I like the way it spreads. I like the way it looks. If I need to repair anything or do any kind of touch-ups or damage control, it's very, very well manageable. I do notice after long periods of time painting, especially during an event, we'll need to shake it every so often because it will start to separate, but I think that's going to be just like any other chemical compound or paint. It's going to separate. You just got to shake it. Again, going to the stick. I love this stick, but the stick, it can be a challenge. So if you're working in high wind, it's going to want to move. So you'll have to move your thumb and index finger down to hold down these little sections. And then when you're painting it, don't get fanatical. It's okay, just paint it. If the wind blows it, shifts it, keep going with it. This stick will make you look silly if you're trying to make it look perfect. More often than not, I only use the lower half of the stick. I don't use the whole thing. Again, because it's just very flimsy and it blows in the wind a lot. So just add a few little highlight touches there. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much at all. All right. Well, I hope this works out for you guys. If you have any feedback, please let us know. And good luck to you and have fun out there.